Hey guys, good morning. It's Ted Bogert. I am back. We are back with the TED Show today. It is June 1st, first day of June, Pride Month this month. And so I had this crazy idea when I started hearing people make what I felt were very uneducated observations, basically either making fun of letters and pronouns, saying things like, why does it matter? What's the alphabet have to do with anything? And I thought, you know what? Let's do a basic letters and pronouns show. Of course, actually, Debo probably came up with the pronouns, but Debo gets huge congratulations from me and thanks because she helped organize this panel. So today what we want to talk about is the importance of letters and pronouns. And so we have each letter and pronoun represented here today. So I'm really excited for them to all share their journey, their story, and a little bit about why this is important to them. So I'm going to kick it off. First of all, welcome everyone. And I'm going to kick it off with Dr. David. Dr. David's going to kind of give us a little breakdown. And I asked them to educate us. And they're all here, and we're all excited, and we're actually all honored. So, all right, Dr. David, I'll start with you.
Well, good morning, Ted, and thank you for having me to be a part of this discussion. I'm excited and honored to do so. I'm Dr. David Baker Hargrove, and I serve as the co-CEO of 26 Health in downtown Orlando, Florida. And I identify with the gay community, but I'm also a person of non-binary experience, which means that my gender identity is neither completely male nor completely female. So I go by a set of pronouns called neopronouns. My particular pronouns are V, ver, vers. I have them at the bottom of the screen. And the best way to describe that, because I know it confuses people because it does not look like English words that we commonly use. And the best way to describe it is to say that you think about a she, her, hers, only with a V.
Thank you. See, I think that when I read that, and I didn't want to look it up, but I didn't even know how to pronounce that. And I did not look at the history purposefully or to try to understand, because I love the fact that you're going to give us the personal definition and the background. All right. So thank you, Dr. David. And Dr. David, tell them a little bit about who you're with as well.
Sure. I am the co-CEO and co-founder of 26 Health, which I lead with my husband. And we are Central Florida's LGBTQ community. 26 Health stands for we care for every letter, since there are 26 letters in the alphabet. So whatever letter you identify with, your letter matters to us. We are a comprehensive healthcare facility open to everyone, regardless of insurance or ability to pay.
Love it. And I would love to do an entire show on that, which leads me to Debo. Debo is on the show today. Debo's I'm going to bring her face forward right on here as soon as Ted, producer, which is Ted, figures out how to bring Debo on here. There she is. Good morning, Debo.
Good morning.
Thank you again for organizing, for hearing me out, and really for helping put this together. Tell them a little bit about you, your letter, your pronouns. Go. Let's take.
Sure. Well, first of all, I wanted to say that we are missing one letter in the spectrum that I know of is the I for intersex. Unfortunately, I was not able to find someone who could join us today, but we do have like 90% of the letters. So
that's amazing.
So I'm Debo. I identify as she, her, and I also identify as L, lesbian. And I am the development manager at 26 Health. And something really interesting is that years ago, I was at an event where somebody of importance kind of flubbed the letters when they were speaking, and sort of brushed off the fact that they had flubbed the letters. And my friend leaned over to me and said, you know, you shouldn't have done that, because if it's your letter, it matters. And that that quote was really powerful, and it stuck with me, and I carried it with me for a long time. And when I first joined the team here at 26 Health, we weren't 26 Health, we were Two Spirit Health Services. And they, about a month after I joined, they transitioned to the new name, and I didn't know that they were doing that. And so to find out that the new name was 26 Health, Care for Every Letter, it just seemed like an amazing, run of fate to bring me into this organization. And and now to do this show and to be able to help you bring all of these letters to help educate your audience, it's great, and I really appreciate it a lot.
We're thankful. Tell us why you believe, or what your personal belief is as far as why the letters and pronouns are important.
Well, I extrapolate from that sense that if it's your letter, it matters, that each letter represents an identity. And if it's your identity, it matters. And that goes far beyond the LGBTQIA spectrum. That goes into, people who identify as liberal or conservative, identify as Black African American or white or Hispanic or Asian, Pacific Islander. These are all, everybody has an identity, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, that resonates. And for some people, their sexuality resonates more than their religion, or their nationality represents more than their color, or something like that. But we all have an identity. And to the individual, that identity matters. And it's not up to anyone outside of that individual to tell them how they should or shouldn't feel or be. Because it's all inside of us.
I love that. Thank you. All right, Debo. So next we have ZoeZo. Let me find you here. Here you are. Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us your letter and pronouns, and then tell us a little bit about why it's important to you to recognize those. Why are they important to you as a human being?
Absolutely. Well, I go by he, him, his as a gay man. That's just always what I've been associated with, especially growing up, a very super religious upbringing. So there was no real sense of figuring out who you were individually. However, I'm very comfortable with he, him, his. And I also recognize the need to be seen and heard as an individual. So before that, I definitely want to express, first and foremost, I learned a very valuable lesson when I was in middle school, say 5th or 6th grade, that I'm a human being first. And regardless of what other people see me as, it's important that I recognize other people's individual needs as well as my own, and express them with graciousness and gratitude and understanding. And as a Black man and a Black human being, we don't often find that equal treatment. So I definitely understand the need for people to be able to be heard, be seen, and be comfortable with who they are. And as Debo said, everybody has that right to be their own individual. And by doing this, Ted, I think it's really phenomenal that you're really trying to express the message of people needing to be comfortable, letting people know who they are, and allowing other people to get the chance to learn about the pronouns and letters of, everything that's associated with them.
Wonderful. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So next we have Lou. Hi, Lou. Let me bring you in.
Hi, Ted. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you? Thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself and your letter and pronouns, and then tell us why it's important for you to recognize those.
Yeah, my name is Mueller-Kaul, pronouns she, her, hers. I have been experimenting with identity and in classroom conversations. I'm an educator, and we've had a lot of conversations on faculty about how are we bringing diversity conversations into the classroom. And so I find it important to already start out on the first day when the students are introducing themselves to one another, to open up and show that it's possible. You can mention your pronouns, you can mention your identity, particularly what is important to you in order to learn best and how can we support you in the classroom. So I've been making that relatively open-ended. We usually have a round of introductions where everybody talks about themselves, and I put examples on the whiteboard, like these are things that you can talk about, and bring on ethnicity, cultural background, and a few different identity examples. So I've noticed that different people identify stronger with different identities. For me, I identify as bisexual, and that is on the importance scale in my identity, even more important than identifying as a woman. So I've been noticing that for a lot of people. For some, their sexual identity and their gender identity might not be as important as other factors. And I always find that interesting. So I like to ask people who I meet new, and particularly students I'll be in charge of, to really say what identity is the one that matters most to them. As a bisexual woman, it's already the conflict we often have is with feeling invisible. I've asked a bunch of friends what they find I should be mentioning on this panel about being bisexual, and I think that is what I often hear is like a lot of my friends feel like their existence still gets denied. And so representing that letter, I think that's what I want to share with everybody viewing this. Please believe we exist. And we're often associated with whatever partner people see us with. So when I was married to Debo, people always assumed I was a lesbian. When people see me with a boyfriend, they think I'm heterosexual. So that's always something that, you know, it kind of chafes us a little.
And that's why these conversations are so important, because the assumption we come with all of these assumptions, and if we don't know, doesn't excuse it. It just means we need to continue to educate like we're doing today. All right, Lou, thank you. Ashley, you're up next. Hi, Ashley, how you doing?
Hey, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, so tell us a little bit about you, your letter, your pronouns, and then why you personally believe letters and pronouns are important.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so honored to participate amongst some amazing friends of mine in this great discussion. And as you mentioned, I'm Ashley T. Brundage, and I'm here representing the T, or one of the people who might be representing the T. T for transgender. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And for me, I feel that how you identify, how you position yourself is key in this world, because there are 7 billion different people on this planet, and we all have differences. And it's the differences that make us unique. The differences can be empowered. And empowering your difference, ultimately taking the thing that makes you uniquely yourself, of who you are and how you identify, that is exactly where we see our strength and our value. And this concept of using empowerment to leverage change is what will ultimately make us into a better society. It produces so much more productivity. I can tell you personally, for me, when I came out as a transgender person 12, 13 years ago, people weren't talking about that. There wasn't as much media hype. And so it's the media hype and how people view all of our intersectional differences has a major impact into how we connect, how we have the ability to gain employment. All of these things and how we live and how we thrive is connected through our identity, and being able to celebrate all of your identity, everything that makes you unique, from not just your pronoun, but not just your name, not just the letter, not just where you live, your lived experiences. These are all the things that make you intersectionally different versus somebody else. And that positioning is where the power and the empowerment lives.
Beautifully said. Ashley T. Brundage. All right. Thank you, Ashley. Abel Rodriguez is up next. Good morning. It's still morning, right? Good morning, Abel. How are you?
Hello, Ted. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm absolutely wonderful today. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us your letter and your pronouns and why that's important to you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. And Debo, thank you for thinking of me. I love you always. My name is Abel. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I identify with the T in for transgender and LGBT. For me, the letters are extremely important. Firstly, because our ancestors in the LGBT community, it's because of them that we are able to be ourselves. And for those who have, sacrificed their lives and just themselves for us to be able to be who we are and have our true identity is something that is an honor, at least in my generation and for future generations to be able to have that privilege. And that's just extremely important. And I am so proud and I love my letter. And there's been different times in my life where I have been through the different letters. And I think that's the beautiful thing about our community is that we all can grow together and we can all be a community and help each other, find our true identity and just grow and love effortlessly and without judgment. So I'm truly honored to be a part of this community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Abel. All right, next up is Jamie. Let me find you, Jamie. I see you up there. I have been listening so intently to everybody that I almost missed a few of my cues. So apologize for that. Jamie, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity to share space with all of you.
Well, thank you for honoring us with educating us, which is what today is all about. So tell us a little bit about you, your letter and your pronouns, and why that's very important to you.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Jamie Umanzor. I use she, her pronouns, and I very proudly identify as a queer, the Q, woman of color. For me, queer is an opportunity to reclaim power and courage for my own authenticity. I grew up at the tail end of an era where queer was still considered a derogatory term. And in fact, it was a bit of a painful process to come to this space where I could say the term queer without feeling any negative things inside. And a dear friend of mine really helped me along with that process. Queer for me also means I get to wear cool pins like this. Oh, this side. For any of our fellow nerds out there on the D20, it says chaotic queer. And also, interestingly, my hair is a part of the story too. I had very long hair down past my waist. And one day I said, I really want to do this. It took me months to really get the courage to do it. And I did it to what it is today. And I remember this feeling of, oh my gosh, what have I been waiting for this entire time? This hair is more me than I ever thought it would be. And it was really in that moment that I felt myself flourish into my full authenticity. And as far as pronouns go, for me, pronouns are an opportunity to help create a space where people are seen, heard, and validated, where I can also help others be comfortable in sharing their pronouns, and especially creating that space for those who are historically and modern day marginalized in the LGBTQ plus community by helping to normalize the use of pronouns.
Love it. And it's interesting, and Shaun, I'm going to bring you up next. One of the many questions I got before we went live, once I posted, was I thought queer was a bad thing to say. So, if people are at least listening, so that's why it's very important that you share that. Thank you, Jamie. All right, Shaun, I'm bringing you up. Shaun, Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, your letter, and your pronouns, and why that's important.
Howdy, I'm Mick Struble. I identify as queer. For me, that is it's about brevity because it's about my intersection of various identities within the LGBTQIA plus community, including trans and non-binary, and recognizing that my romantic tendencies are different than my sexual tendencies, and my pronouns are they, them.
Thank you, Shaun. We had a lot of people ask about the they, that, the ones that people I think either had not heard or maybe had heard on the news and didn't understand it. So identifying that and explaining that is just so important. Thank you. All right, and Alexia, we have not forgotten you. You are up. Alexia, hi, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your letter, pronouns, and why that's important.
Yeah, so I'm Alexia. I'm actually the compliance specialist at 26 Health. My pronouns are she, Faye, and actually Faye is a recent addition. I originally just did she, her, but over my research, over the last year, I felt Faye fit me, and Faye is actually a neopronoun like Dr. David's, but it's also called a noun self, which is the using of an already established word as a pronoun. My letters are T for transgender, but I'm also a polyromantic and a demisexual, which has evolved because I used to thought I was asexual. And it just shows that you can, your letters aren't your letters all the time. You don't pick and you're stuck with it. You can constantly learn and grow as a person. And so that's what they mean to me. And I use more than one letter because you can use one letter to identify yourself or many. And I always use many because I try to explain to people that, yeah, they're all parts that make up myself. Like I am a gamer and I'm a nerd, and those letters make up me just as much as being a demisexual or a transgender woman.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to bring Dr. David back on because we had a lot of questions before we went live. And two really came, and I'm going to let you wrap it up too. Two of them specifically, and if any of this needs to be continued in a conversation, that's okay too, Dr. David. We had people ask about what the word fluid has to do anything, because that's a big media buzzword. Sexually fluid. And I think a lot of people, again, make fun of things in an ignorant way, but they're not educated. And so we're appealing to the ones who are educatable here. So fluid was one. And then just a brief comment, if you can, on today's interesting turn of events where the governor here is signing the bill as far as transgender and sports go on the first day of Pride. So not to put you on the spot, but I would be very remiss if I didn't ask that.
Well, it's not really putting me on the spot. It's the condensing it that is probably the best issue, because there's so much to unpack here. Okay, so first fluid. So doctor, I am a psychologist by training, and so whenever we study anything in human behavior, human research, human characteristics, everything falls on a continuum. So if we're going to study intelligence or shyness or confidence, we take a group of people and we rank them, in whatever we're measuring. It's all going to be on a spectrum. The one thing historically we have never put on a spectrum is sexual orientation and gender identity. Those two areas that are so important to human experience have always been one or the other. You're at this end or you're at that end. And what we've certainly found out, happily, over the past 20 years or so, increasingly so, is that gender identity and sexual orientation are on a spectrum. So, and in reality, bisexuality or pansexuality is a lot more common than what people think. Also, people who you will see now that the conversation has started over the last 4 or 5 years, you will see much more conversation about not being explicitly male or female. that gender identity can also be fluid. Fluid just being another word for a spectrum along a range of behaviors. And so that's really what fluid is about. It's that spectrum. Yes.
It makes sense. The reason I think I think there are people out there that want to really be educated, and they don't say things or do things because they're afraid. And I just want to, that's why I want this show, because I want to create this where you all have put a human face and story with a letter and pronoun, and I want them to be able to feel that and see that. All right, I asked you a second question. Today's interesting transgender sports, and I said interesting in quotes. Give them a little, give the audience just a little bit of your perspective on why it's important for transgender to be able to participate in sports, and what the community's thoughts are on today's interesting choice of days to sign that bill.
So the bottom line here, to try to keep it very, very concise, is that sexism is such a still prominent issue in our society, and a lot of the issues and the backlash on the transgender community is really rooted in sexism, because more of it is really a backlash against trans women than trans men. A lot of the mythology about a woman in a dress going into the women's bathroom to attack women, which there's no research that has actually ever happened, but it's a myth that keeps perpetuating itself. The whole bathroom debacle and argument is really about trans women going into female restrooms. And so the same thing now we have in athletics is that this is really specifically designed to prevent trans girls, young trans girls, for participating in women's athletics and just being the athlete that they want to be and the person that they want to be. And so, and therein lies the real problem. It's really rooted in sexism, which is, I mean, we as a society, we have to tackle our sexism issues as well, which we're not doing a really good job of.
Agreed. And that's why I feel like there's so much more for us to talk about. And so I would like to continue this conversation. Thank you all. I'm very thankful. I'm humbled, and I mean that. I still believe, even in our world today, it is a very brave thing to come out and share anything that other people may or may not want to hear, not want to accept, not want to be educated on. So kudos to you. I think it's very, very important. We continue the conversation. You all now you're all tagged and everything. So audience, when you guys want to look something up, the pronouns are all there. Everything's there. You can look them up. And if you have questions, now you have a good solid 10 people to reach out to, and you know that your questions are going to be answered. I just appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for being here. And I would love to invite you all to come back to have some more in-depth conversations on this very important topic. All right, everybody have a great day. Thank you, audience. We have lots of questions. I'm going to post those in the comments, and then each of the guests can respond because there's some questions specifically for guests. All right, you all have a beautiful day. Get out and get educated, everybody. Their letters and pronouns are